Sean, we're back. It's a new year, 2026, and we're back with the RVA bike scene. It's been a minute, as they say, and I'm happy to be back here. Happy New Year to you and your family. I hope you're doing well.
Yeah, everything's good, and see how this impending doom of snowstorm affects everyone.
Yeah, in the Richmond area, if you're from here, probably already know we got a big snowstorm coming. It's not a nor'easter. It's I don't know what it is, but
it's
we're a few days
the
out.
Southwest.
Yeah, I know. But, so I actually went to the market today to stock up, which we usually shop every Sunday anyways. But we're like, oh, maybe we should just in case. And, of course, I forgot dog food. But
Gotta have dog food.
We have some, but I'm like, if we're stuck here for a few days after, then it'll be kind of tight. So thanks for, coming on in to talk today about what's going on in Richmond. And I want to thank everyone out there who followed us last year with what we were doing on the RVA bike scene. And, sorry for the little delay, just, getting into the groove.
Christmas.
And Christmas, New
Year's. It was
Year's.
the holidays. We all wanted to eat some food and drink some beer.
Yeah, and take some breaks. I want to thank you, though, right off the bat for fixing my bike. If people are on this video on Ian Stewart Cycles, you probably saw that I mucked up trying to do a basic chain fix and on my KO Focus. So I had to bring it across down to Sean, who was like the IT guy, and just went, "Oh, do this and do that," and I was going to ride it the next day, and I didn't get out like an idiot. And then the next day was rain and chilly. I don't mind cold, but wind I don't like. Cold wind.
Yeah, you put the two together, and it's pretty miserable.
Yeah, so I need to get out.
You're welcome. I'm glad we got that sorted out, and no harm, no foul. You didn't ride it with the chain not quite on the bike.
Yeah, I missed the one thing. You showed me how to tighten the quick link, which was great, which I should have remembered. And then you also noticed like I didn't have it in the proper.
Yes, your chain was going under the front derailleur, chain guide. It's more structural, I guess, than anything else. But
because I'm a dumbass. But we'll get back to this. But we have something that you taught me, which I've followed an old stereotype, an old rule that we'll talk about later.
All right.
So talk about what's coming up. There's some cyclocross races, I think, coming up, and that's way in March and February. We don't really need to.
So what we do have coming up is MonsterCross, February 15th. Which is more of a gravel race at Pocahontas State Park. It's pretty big. Place. So MonsterCross is kind of a gravel race, mostly off-road on some double track at Pocahontas State Park. It's February 15th. Starts at 10 a.m. There's a couple of different categories you can race. 50-mile, 25-mile options. There's a unicycle category if you'd like to do a unicycle for 25 miles.
Hold on. Wait a minute.
Yes,
I ride at Pocahontas periodically. It's been a while, but their fire roads are great. I mean, there's ruts and things like that, but a unicycle?
Yeah, I think so. A few people have done it. But anyway, not many. It's one or two. And
the second guy was juggling while he was doing it, too, just to show off.
That's coming up. Mostly double track. A little bit of road. There's one little section of kind of single track right towards the finish line, so everybody's spread out. But it's a really good time. About 550, 600 people usually come out, and 50-mile, 25-mile options. February 15th, Pocahontas State Park. You do have to pay the parking fee if you don't have a yearly membership, or whatever the yearly pass. And outside of that, we have a few mountain bike races that are going to be coming up in March, starting. Oh, I can't remember the dates, but we got one in.
We'll go back to that when it gets a little closer. Yeah, we don't want to go too.
So that's the near future right now.
Okay.
There is a road race at William and Mary or somewhere near William and Mary, Williamsburg area on like February 22nd. I know that's probably not much of our audience, but the road events are going to start happening in February to March. Mountain bike starts around March. So things are about to pick up.
Yeah. Well, it is, summer in Australia, and the Tour Down Under has started. The one that's finished did their 3-day Naomi Rugi one. I think she came out of...
And as I found out on a podcast I listened to, her name is Noemi, not
Noemi.
Naomi. So it's...
I didn't think it was Naomi, but it's Noemi.
It's Noemi. And
EF Education.
It's an interesting... I had not caught that. Like it's one of those names that you see and you don't recognize that the O and the E are switched.
I think there's an umlaut in there too.
There is, and she's Swiss. So the Rug or whatever her last name is, I don't know. It's Yeah,
it was a pretty good. I mean, I caught what I can because it was on Peacock, and lordy, they didn't have commercials, which was fantastic. Because last time they did the Tour de France, which of course they're going to have commercials, but man, really annoying.
Yeah,
so they didn't have
more commercials than coverage for some of the stages.
And as we're taping this, the men's prologue was last night, and then tonight they're starting their stage, and it's of course longer stages.
And it's in the middle of the night. It starts at 7:15, and I'll be long asleep.
I just watched the recap.
That's what I'll do.
So things are starting up, and there's a couple things going on around town that I want to make sure people know about. Two things. One, if you're in Chesterfield or you ride in Chesterfield, VDOT and the Chesterfield Transportation Department are asking for you to fill out a survey that ends on the 20. Oh crap! It ends today. Well, maybe I shouldn't talk about it, but it was all for Iron Bridge to kind of make Iron Bridge more safer in terms of ped. So go check that out. Maybe they'll extend it, but if you go to their transportation page, they have a whole bunch of other stuff going on. So I apologize for that. I forgot today's the 20th. And then another thing going on. There's been an update of the Mayo Bridge design, which if you go to the Richmonder and check out Sarah Vogelsong's great story about what's going on. There's a couple different designs, and there seems to be some hiccup or some issue with the bike lanes, which they want bike lanes. The new Mayor Vula talked about bike lanes as well, but they're not protected. And VDOT apparently is sticking to bollards or something. So if you want to reach out to your council person or the office, or I think there's a planning commission meeting coming up, but just go check out, what's going on with the Mayo Bridge if you ride that area or plan on going to Mayo Island when it's all done. But go check it out because I really think it needs to be protected. It needs to go down from 4 lanes to 2. They mentioned, I think VDOT mentioned, the speed limit's going to be going down from 25
or 35 to 25.
Yeah, 35 to 25. But again, I will say this about speed limits, which I've said, and I've heard this from VDOT, and no shade to Mr. Wheeler, who's organizing this, but just reducing the speed does not make people go slower.
Right.
We all know that. So it's an area for pedestrians and bikes and people to get through, but the way they're redesigning it, it should be as safe as possible for everyone. And having people go slower.
One of the arguments was about emergency vehicles, which emergency vehicles do need to get through, but there are really simple and cheap ways to allow both things. And I'm not. They've got the little. They've got a name. I can't remember what they're called, like alligator heads or something. That are the plastic separators that you'd notice it if you're driving a car, but you'd be able to drive right over it in any large vehicle. There's that sort of thing. They could do a raised curb that again, a bigger vehicle could just get up on the curb and drive. So there are other options. They're also not expensive options. So, talking about a Jersey barrier, that's never going to fly when you have backed up 5 o'clock traffic and you need an ambulance to get through. That's not going to work. But there are other things that they can do, and I think they're just not really thinking outside of the box right now. But
all they need to do is go look at Europe, because they have that same discussion with fire trucks are way too big.
True.
For the most part. Yes, we have high rises, and I understand that, but in Europe, the EMS are allowed to go in the bike lane, and guess who's quicker about getting out of the way? If there's an EMS coming, bikes could get out of the way. They could hop onto the pedestrian curb and get out of the way and let the vehicle go. That way, the EMS trucks aren't honking to try to get around for people that are supposed to stop and pull over.
Yeah,
there are ways around that particular issue.
Sure.
So, people out there? What are your thoughts? We've heard this with speed bumps, or roundabouts. The vehicles can't get through. Guess what? You design roundabouts so the trucks could go slightly over or slightly around, or there are ways. The speed bumps aren't the ones you find in the malls anymore, where they're you're going to break a tire or break a rim. So there are ways to get around that issue.
And
So-
speaking about the safety things, we've had a few pedestrian deaths in the last few weeks. I think we're at 3 now, and then I saw an electric scooter on Route 60, I think, yesterday. Someone was killed. I'm not sure exactly where that was. I think either Midlothian or Hull Street. So, that's not a place you want to be on an electric scooter. And so I'm not sure. I don't know any of the circumstances. I don't know time of day or anything, but one of the things that we have to reconcile is the speed of what we're doing as a pedestrian. You have a speed, and as a runner, you have a speed, and as a bike, you have a speed. Electric scooters are kind of new, and I wonder if people don't really understand that they might be going 12 or 15 miles an hour when they're on a sidewalk. And so you come into an intersection, you think you can make the right turn, or you think you can make the left turn, whatever, but that's where things kind of jump out at you, is when the thing that you see doesn't stay with the same laws of physics that you understand them to be.
Right.
And so I think we do have to be conscious of, as a driver, you have to look at every situation, but, when you're on a mode of transportation where you don't belong there, so if you're a bike on a sidewalk, or if you're even a runner and you're running through an intersection and you might have the green light, but there's 2 box vans parked where you're running beside them, cars can't see you. So there is like a sort of back and forth that we need to think about. How do we all look at it together and be safe? It's not victim blaming necessarily. It's like consciousness of all of your surroundings and thinking of the scenarios that put you into places where you might not be expected. So, and these electric the reason I bring this up is the electric scooters are now in the bike lanes, on Franklin Street. And I had somebody pull out in front of me. I can't remember where I was exactly, but he clearly wasn't stopping, so I slowed down, and he made a turn into the bike lanes and immediately, across, at an angle, crossed the road to the other sidewalk. And Franklin's one way with the 2-way bike lane. I couldn't tell what he was doing, but there were cars parked on both sides. So any car coming behind me at 25, 30 miles an hour may not have seen him approaching the intersection like I did. And so, hopefully he had a good semblance of what was around, but he just whipped right through. He had big headphones on, no helmet, and just zipped right through. So there is some awareness on all these moving pieces, and as we introduce new methods of transportation, it's even more critical that we all see each other.
Yeah, and that just to piggyback on that, it brings up a good point that a lot of, I don't know what the polite word is, or it's not naysayers, but a lot of people, if you look online, of course, and there's an accident, immediately people jump on it and try to blame the pedestrian, blame the cyclist, or there's always things about cyclists not paying attention, breaking the laws, et cetera, et cetera. And, there is an issue with scooter riders and pedestrians and cyclists really need to also be aware of their surroundings. And I know some advocates say, oh, it is the cars, and it is speeding, and it is driver distraction. And yes, they are bigger vehicles and heavier vehicles, and they could kill you. No doubt about that. But there is some responsibility on us who walk and bike and scoot to really pay attention to their surroundings. Cars have blind spots. You're on a scooter, you don't. Your bike, you don't. But we need to really pay attention to what we're wearing and what we're looking at when we're walking and biking. And, it does take 2. So I don't want to blame a lot of issues on one particular group, but, it's a 2-way street.
Yeah.
There's a good pun.
I think what I'm really getting at is that, like I said, the scooters are still new, and the speed of the scooters is different from any other vehicle that we currently interact with. Right. And so the scooters are kind of they're an outlier right now. maybe you expect them in the city, but you might not expect one out on Hull Street or like I said, Midlothian. It's even more new if you're out in that area. So we all just have to think about the mode of transportation we've got, and anything that we can do to protect ourselves, or be visible, be predictable, be somewhere you're supposed to be.
Yeah, I think that's a good phrase, to be predictable and let people know. And I'm a biker who puts my arms out when I'm turning and let people know which way I'm going.
Yeah.
And and if they don't see it, that's an issue as well. But I try everything I can to be not weaving in and out. And I know there are bikers that do this, that go in and out like they're a bike messenger in New York City, and that puts a bad reflection on the rest of us who cycle or commute by bike, just to do that. We don't need to get into all the specifics about it, but you mentioned there is Dumbarton bike lane issue going on there.
So we have a new bike lane on Dumbarton between Azalea and effectively all the way to Staples Mill. So it's a couple of miles. I found something interesting. I can't remember the link, but it's a GIS page that shows all of the bike lanes in the region. I thought there was just one that was for the city, but there's now one that covers. It's multicolored and dash line versus solid, so it's the things that have been installed, and it's separated by shared use, actual bike lane, but it's. I think I searched regional Richmond bike trail map or something like that, and it was one of the second or third link. So it's a really good resource to see what all's coming and what's been done. But Dumbarton's brand new. And so there's a little issue at Azalea because the contractor and I haven't looked at it myself, so I don't know, this is a hearsay, but there's something about the transition between Henrico and Richmond, and the contractor either went too far into Richmond with the Henrico stuff or didn't go far enough into Henrico with the Richmond stuff. I'm not really sure. I live right here. I need to go check it out. Yeah. But at the end of it, between Bird Hill Road and Staples Mill, so basically just the bridge over the train tracks, it switches to a cycle track that's two-way traffic. So you've got a dedicated bike lane, and they've narrowed it to 2 lanes. There's tons of complaints about the 2 lanes and how bad the traffic is. People will figure it out. It's brand new, but it's another slightly disjointed. When you get to Azalea, it pops you out into the Brook Road bike lane, but only to the south. It doesn't take you going north. Doesn't get you into a bike lane. Going straight through east on Azalea doesn't get you into a bike lane. But when you get to the other end on the western side, it changes designs at an intersection. And so I haven't seen the plans of it. I don't know what method you use to go from bike lane to cycle track. If there's a pedestrian beacon or something you can press to get across safely. There is a stoplight there, but again, it's because it's new and people aren't really familiar with it. I'm wondering just how that works in practice. So I'm hoping that something we get used to it, or the design works pretty well. But I've heard some complaints already about not really knowing what to do when they see this change and this is from drivers. This is not from people on bikes. I'd really like to know why they decided to change the actual design just for less than a quarter of a mile.
Well, I'll put a link in the show notes and on the YouTube page for that, as well as the article for the Richmonder about the Mayo Bridge. And I think that's it. That all we have to kind of talk about on our first episode of 2026. We had one other thing.
You did seem to have one other topic.
I did, and I almost forgot. I know you want to eat dinner, and I need to go on my walk. It's walk number 1036, I think, that I'm doing tonight.
Excellent.
Yeah, it's freezing out.
It's very cold and windy.
And windy. I walked yesterday, by the way, and I sped up because I'm like, I want to get done with it. I set such a weird, dumb goal for myself. But so when you fix my bike, I'd mentioned tire pressure. I'm like, oh, I haven't filled up my tire, and you asked me what I run at. So I have a road bike, and I know the old rule of thumb, which I don't do this, but the old rule of thumb was like 110, 90 psi and up. Never, I didn't really do that. But my goal is like, I think 80, 85-ish, around there. And you're like, no, dude, no. So explain why that for a road bike, and we're not talking cyclocross, that's a whole different ball of wax. So why was I doing it? Why was I wrong?
So there's a lot of new science in the last few years about particularly road bikes and tire pressure. Some of it speaks to the fact that we've got a lot of tubeless and slightly wider tires on most bikes, but even then, one of the things that we're learning is that the old higher pressure causes the bike to bounce a lot. And when your bike is bouncing, if it's going up and down, it's not going forward. So you're gaining some traction. You're gaining a little bit of better cornering and steering because as you go through a turn, the wheel doesn't bounce going through the turn either. So for that reason, the idea of lower tire pressures is faster and more comfortable. You gain some suspension out of the tire itself. And on a road bike where you don't have suspension, it's important to get as comfortable as you can get given the conditions and given what you ride. And so the old rules are kind of out the window, and for smaller tires like a 23C, 25C, 28C, the numbers haven't come down quite as much. So maybe if you weigh 150 pounds, you might run, I'm doing this off the top of my head, 75 on a road bike. And as you go up in tire size, you can bring that down. So typically I run a 32 at about 65. And then I have a set of cyclocross tires that really have a road tread in the middle that I run quite a bit lower. I think they're 33C. I run those at like 40 when I go out for a road ride. I also, when I go out on a road ride, sometimes I go into the woods and kind of make diversions. So, but a lot of the science is saying like, you want your bike to bounce less, which is also, it also wears your body out because you're taking more of that absorption through your body. So when you're bouncing off the ground, your arms are taking a little bit of abuse and your back is taking a little bit of abuse and your muscles are vibrating. So you're actually losing energy stabilizing the bike. So the smoother the bike can roll across the pavement, the more traction you have, the more comfortable you are. And that science is really, maybe the last 5 years, 10 years, it's come a really long way. So if you're riding on the road, no matter what you ride, 25C, if you're running a 23C tire, go look at some of the research in rolling resistance and tires and see what your newer numbers should be. And the difference is sometimes if you have an inner tube, you have to worry about pinch flats. The bigger the tire, the lower the pressure, the less likely you are to have a pinch flat anyway. So another reason to bring it down a little. Going tubeless means you don't have the inner tube to pinch flat. So if you have a bike that can go tubeless, I recommend tubeless. It's just a whole new world of what we used to do because the original 110, 120 PSI, it came from the track. It came from a velodrome where you don't have you're not on paved, cracked asphalt.
Asphalt.
That is as smooth as it gets for bike riding. And so that's where those tire pressures, you're also putting all of your force into the wall because it's banked. You're never cornering and needing the tire to flex a little to be able to corner. So all of those rules kind of went out the window about, like I said, 5 to 10 years ago. And a lot of studies have been done now. There's some in aerodynamics about bigger tires and how they meet up with the rim, but the tire itself being slightly softer is an advantage in just about every way.
Yeah, and you sent me a nice link, which I'll also put in the notes, both on our YouTube channel and in the podcast, that shows like a graph of if you weigh this is like what your tire pressure should be, kind of thing.
There's a couple different ones out there, and some of them, Silka has a great one, but you have to put in your email address and sign up for their email list or whatever when you do it. So there's a few out there that are a little more cumbersome or, pay to play type things. So this Renee Hurst one is seemingly about the best one that I could find that was like readily available, free, visual, and you don't have to fill in a bunch of numbers.
Yeah, the problem is I don't know what I weigh, and I don't want to weigh myself, so
well,
I'm going to take a guesstimate, and I'll try it at a couple different pressures. I'm going to go down to 70 and give that a try. But my brain is going to be like, "You're going to go slow," and I'm like, "I go slow anyways. My speed is not a factor."
Yeah. Well, and the other side that some of these charts do is, and you have to look kind of closely. Some take into account like rider plus bike plus like anything you've got. So water bottles, tire, a saddlebag, your clothes, like, your helmet, your shoes. You kind of got to estimate everything a little bit higher than what you would weigh on a scale. But again, just whatever bike you're riding, go do a little bit of research because all the old science is gone.
Yeah, it's funny because when I was watching GCN all the time, they always talk about tire pressure and all this stuff. But they have some really sweet, swanky bikes, and I'm like, I'm just a dude. I'm just a dude riding in suburbia. I don't pay attention. I mean, to all that. But I will give it a try because I was, I guess, too high, and I'll see how it goes. Yeah. Well, and
like I said, let me know what you think because I find lower pressures really are nice.
Yeah. Well, on lower pressure, let's prepare for this Snowmageddon coming this weekend. And Sean, as always, I appreciate you sliding on in.
You too, man. And we will talk maybe next week when there's a little bit more going on.
Yeah, all right.
And we're not all snowed in. We might have nothing to do but record podcasts.
That's right. Well, there you go. Everyone go back catalog and listen to all our podcasts from last year.
And that's only if we have internet or power.
Yeah. Don't say that.
Or water, because we're in Richmond.
Oh, well, sorry. We're fine in Chesterfield. We have like 3 or 4 reservoirs. So.
I'll be coming to your house.
There you go. You're welcome anytime.
Take care, man.
You too.